Yeah.
Thank you. The Bali communique said that most members of the G20 condemned the war in Ukraine. What progress has been made in the last 10 months to get India and China on board with that position?
Well, first of all, India signed on to the statement, most members. It was, as I recall, Russia who was the main objector to the proposition that so many of the other members of the G20 signed on to. I don't expect that Russia's going to flip its position on the Ukraine war this year. So to get absolute consensus on a statement on Ukraine is challenging because you've got Russia seated at the table, albeit not at the leader level because Putin isn't going to be there. But the fact that most members of the G20, as most members of the UN General Assembly, continue to hold the position that Russia's war was illegal in violation of the UN Charter and that this war must end on terms consistent with the UN Charter, that is the result of months of hard diplomacy by the United States and our partners, and it continues to reflect where international sentiment is on this issue.
And what assurances has the administration received from Congress that the U.S. will be able to continue funding Ukraine's defenses going forward?
Well, we are working closely with the Congress, as you know, right now on a supplemental funding package that the President has submitted, seeking funding through the end of the year. We've been working with both the Senate and the House. We've had constructive conversations on a bipartisan basis in both chambers. We believe we will be able to secure the necessary funding as we go forward. I'm not going to speak to assurances per se, but the conversations have been constructive, they've been positive, they've been substantive. And we anticipate being able to work our way through to a sound package so that Ukraine can get what it needs.
Thanks, Jake. I wanted to return to the Ukraine supplemental, and you said that you believe that you'll be able to secure the necessary funding. I was hoping you could talk a little bit about why you believe that and whether it's getting harder to get those supplementals through Congress, and also why the administration doesn't do more to sell the American public on the need for those requests.
So, on the first question, our view is that the strong bipartisan support for Ukraine in the Congress, in both the House and the Senate, has been on evidence, has been on display, not just in the past votes for Ukraine funding, but in the current public statements of critical members of both parties in really important positions in the Senate, as well as key chairs of committees in the House. And so we believe that there is still, while there are some dissonant voices, a strong core on a bipartisan basis of support for ensuring that we continue to provide Ukraine with the support that it needs because it's fundamentally in America's national interest to do so. And with the question of quote unquote selling it, the president has made clear repeatedly since this conflict began what the stakes are for the American people. That letting Russia run roughshod over Ukraine would put Europe at risk, and we know what happens when a marauding, aggressive, hostile power places the continent of Europe at military risk. It comes at much greater cost, not just in American treasure, but in American lives later. And so let's make the investments now to ensure we uphold the fundamental rules of the international order. The president has made that case repeatedly. We believe if you actually look at where public attitudes are, that they have been surprisingly resilient despite the constant assertion that the bottom is going to fall out from underneath them. And similarly, we believe support will hold up in the Congress for us to be able to continue to provide Ukraine with the support that it needs. But we don't take that for granted. That's something we need to go work at every day, consult with members, ensure we're answering their questions, ensure accountability for every dollar that's spent, ensure that our allies and partners are stepping up and doing the burden sharing so that they're carrying their fair share of the load. We're doing all of those things too. And I think in a dynamic discussion with the Congress, we believe that we can secure a good funding package when all is said and done.
You feel like support is still steady rather than eroding in terms of monetary support for Ukraine?
What I will say is we believe that there is still a strong base of bipartisan support in the Congress to pass a material package that Ukraine needs to be able to not just sustain its gains on the battlefield, but also to ensure that those gains can be consolidated and not rolled back as we go forward.